come to you this morning, Lord, I just pray we come in humble hearts this morning to the most awesomest God there is, Lord, one and only God, your Son Jesus, Lord. And I pray, Lord, that our hearts are prepared, our minds are prepared, Lord, to worship and to hear the word today, Lord. We praise you and we thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Good morning. Okay, those of you who are here this morning, come on and let's sing loud.
The herald angels sing, glory to
first time? Oh my God.
You loved it.
Oh.
Good.
Oh.
Good.
I need some more. I'll pay you for it.
Hey, Stephen, how you doing?
Good, how are you? What's up? Shake like a man. Shake like a man. Come on. There you go. Morning, how are you?
Better today than last Sunday with all that.
Morning. Hey, little man. Congratulations, dude.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Morning. Stephen, how are you? Good, how are you?
We're a little bit smaller in number, but we're rowdy today.
Amen.
I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take it. Thank you for being at Cornerstone this morning. I know I am excited tonight. It's the kids' Christmas play. I pretty much know all their lines after yesterday because Elijah and I did that for a while. But it's going to be a great night tonight, and you want to be here at 6 o'clock. Also, what you would want to do tonight is bring some refreshments. You're going to have refreshments afterwards. So be prepared to do that. We'll spend some time together. And it'll be a good time for you to go around and tell all the kids how good they did, too. That'd be a good thing for you to do. I want to congratulate Jonathan Jones on his graduation. As well. I think she took her master's. So I want to show you something, a video that I've got that I'm going to share with you this morning. If you remember Jared Snyder, he came in back in October and he shared with us that he wanted to purchase a vehicle for them, and they went back just right after Thanksgiving to Peru. And he sent me this video.
Hey, Cornerstone Fellowship Church. We just really want to take this opportunity to say thank you guys so much. With your help, we've been able to buy a vehicle. This is a 2002 Toyota Land Cruiser 78. It can seat 13 people. It's capable of going everywhere we need to go, from the mountains to the jungle. And we just really want to say thank you, Pastor Matt, Mr. K. Drew, and everybody else at Cornerstone who gave to this project. And thank you guys so much for your support.
Thank you guys for also continuing to pray for us. It means so much to us, and it was so nice to get to be with y'all when we were there. Thank y'all.
Thank you guys so much. We love you guys, and we'll see you soon.
That is what generosity does. And we were able to bless them while they were here. And I know the International Pastor Aid was able to work with them and going to be able to do some more for them. So we're excited about that. Excited about what they're doing. Excited about what God is doing here through you. And that's an amazing thing to be able to invest in something and know that the money that you had in your pocket was able to put the vehicle in Peru that he's standing in front of. And it'll be working today because of something that you were able to be part of. And it's that God allowed you to be faithful. And that's what the key is to giving. I told him Wednesday night, I said, big faith is kind of like this. I said, when somebody asks you for money and you have it in your pocket, don't ask the question, should I give? Just go ahead and give. I said, because it may be more about your obedient
meets them their need. God may do it, and they may not need it at all, but you may need it. And so that's what God is doing for us through that. I want to ask the ushers to come up at this time, and Cater, would you come up and you bless the offering for us this morning? But thank you for what you're doing. It is making a difference, not only here, but around the world, through some of the things that we've been able to give and do. So.
Let's pray. Jesus, we just thank you so much, Lord. Just that video, Lord, just you can take a small amount, Lord, and you can multiply it many times, Lord. So we thank you, Lord. We pray for these offerings, Lord, and we pray that they go to your kingdom, to your work, Lord. And we pray that we use them the way you have us use them. We thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Where we're buying vehicle, so they can travel back and forth and Peru. They had a video. I got it on the phone. Come on, dude.
Okay, kids. If you'd like to leave, chances are you'll be singing. This one. This time of year, it takes a little bit more effort on our part to move into worship because there's so much else going on. Oh, come Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel that mourns in lonely exile until the Son of God appear. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, O Israel. Oh come, God Most High, deliver us from sinfulness and pride, restore in us that childlike heart to
Lord, we love you. And we thank you for today to be in your house, God. We're glad to be here, and we're blessed to be here, God. And we're thankful that you would send your son for us, God. Knowing, Lord, what a way to do. You still paid the price for us, God. And I thank you for that. And today, Lord, open our ears to hear the word of God. It is bread for our life, God. Help us to hear it today, God. And not only to hear it, but to apply it. And not only to apply it, but to share it, God. And to walk out of here today knowing that we have been commissioned to carry forth the gospel and announce the greatness and the soon coming Lord. And so, Lord, open our ears over these next moments to absorb what you have, God. In your name I pray. Amen. Amen. You know, my expectation of what God is going to do drives my excitement. My expectation drives my excitement. When I have a low expectation, my excitement level is low. But when I come expecting God to do great things, I never leave disappointed. But tell you what, expectation is not something that you just cook up in a moment's notice. Expectation is something that you create in your life. When you get up in the morning, when you spend time in God's Word, when you pray, when you really cast out big faith and big vision and big dreams, expectation is something that you're building in, because when you cast out big faith, like what we talked about Wednesday night, when I throw something so far and say, you know what, I don't even have the arm to make it go the distance, and God takes it the rest of the distance. When I create that moment, God creates an expectation for whatever I've thrown to arrive at its location. And in that expectation of God to meet me where I fall short, I get an excitement. And that excitement grows in me. And excitement and expectation for a move of God creates revival. It creates revival. And I'm telling you, he who has something to sell and goes and whispers in a well is not as likely to get the dollar as he who climbs the hill and hollers, and we've got something to sell. And I feel like we've been whispering in a well. And if we really believe that we have been redeemed, set free, once nasty, now clean, I think it would change the way that we approach life. And I think people who realize that they've been forgiven much often show it on their face. And they often show it in the way they live. And there's an expectation that God is going to cover them and that God is going to carry them from one place to the next. And man, this year we've seen such great things, but I really think 2018 is the year. I think God is fixing to blow it up. And there may be not as many of us here this morning as there normally is. There may be probably half what there normally is this morning. But what I believe is that there's sometimes where a few can make a big difference. After Jesus told his disciples, he said, unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no part with me. After he said that, he turned around and everybody was gone but the 12. Everybody. And he looked at them almost in shock that they were still there. And he says, will you go too? And Peter, who's always ready with an answer, sometimes when that's good and when that's bad, Peter says, well, where would I go? And you're here this morning because you've already answered that question in your own life. You said, where would I go? What would I do? A lot of you I've done ministry with, and I know the kind of men you are. I know the kind of women you are. And you look at it and you say, you know what? At this point, where would I go? So I'm saying if we already determined that we're not going to go anywhere else, why don't we go all the way? See, because even though those 12 were there, when Jesus turned around and he said, even though those 12 were there, we know one of them fell off, which was Judas. And then we know that that 10 of them were not present at the cross. Only one, John, was present at the cross. So that tells me only one was able to go all the way. Now later they would all eventually walk, many of them walked the same path that Jesus walked, but it was only a few that will ever actually go all the way. We talked about it Wednesday night. You know, we admire that Peter stepped out and walked on the water. We think he was great, but the odds tell us that if we were there, only 1 out of 12 stepped out of the boat. So more than likely we wouldn't even have gotten out of the boat. And he looked at Peter and said, you have little faith, but I wonder how much faith the people in the boat had. And they were the ones that loved him the most. So those of you who are still teeter-tottering on whether you're going to follow Jesus today or whether you're not, I wonder if you're even in the faith realm. And it's time for us to establish who God is in our life. And that's not what today's message is about. Maybe it is. If you have your Bibles, turn to Exodus chapter 3. Exodus chapter 3. And what we're talking about is God is defining who he is. He is defining who he is. Right. Exodus chapter 3, starting with verse 11. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring children of Israel out of Egypt. And he said, but I will be with you, and this shall be the sign for you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. And Moses said to God, suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. And they ask, what is his name? Then what shall I tell them? And God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent you. And I'm sure Moses was like, he got his little pad out there. He said, who? Now who should I tell them? Who should I tell them that sent me? And God says, I am. And he says, okay, I am. And he draws this blank. I am who, God? I am what? I am. And God says, I am who I am. In other words, who I am, it includes everything. It includes, I'm the answer to all the questions, because all the questions began with me. I'm the question to all directions, because all directions started with me. I am. It meets all of your needs. And so he goes down and he tells them, I am is who sent me. So God made the statement, tell them, I am has sent you. And for Moses, I'm sure he's sitting there trying in his human mind to comprehend what the statement truly means. Because I know I would have been confused. And most likely Moses never understood the statement until he had a need. He didn't understand what God had told him until he had a need. And then he quickly realized that God was filling in all the blank spaces of his life with that one statement of who he is. And he said, I am. And what we're talking about this morning is God is filling in the blanks. He says, I am. And he's filling in the blanks. For example, God tells Moses he is to go before Pharaoh and demand that he lets God's people go. But Moses, he has this little problem with that statement. If you would, turn to Exodus chapter 4. Just flip over or look on the other side. Exodus chapter 4. Verse 10. Moses said to the Lord, pardon your servant, Lord. I have never been eloquent, neither in the past, nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. I am slow of speech and tongue. In other words, I have an issue, God. How am I going to talk to anybody when I stutter all the time? My mouth doesn't work as quickly as it needs to. No one is going to listen to me fumble through my words. However, what Moses is about to learn is something that we all need to learn. And that is this morning. If you have something, you want to write it down. Our need is always answered with God's I am. You come to God and you have an I need. I need a healing. He says, I'm the God who healeth thee. You come to God and you say, oh, Lord, I'm in need. I'm an orphan. And he says, I am a father to the fatherless. See, your need is answered by who God is. It's like it's hard for us to wrap our mind around sometimes that God really is the answer to everything we need. But the thing about it is that if he created it, doesn't he have the power to sustain it? So anything that you would lack for, he makes up for. Anything that you would desire, maybe not anything that you would want, like, oh, I just want this, I want this. Not that he couldn't provide it, but I don't think he's as much concerned with that. But what I'm saying is that when you have a need, he is it. And so our needs are answered in who God is. And the very name of God answers the very present need of man. The name of God answers the very present need of man. Isn't that interesting? He says, I am, and man says, I need. There's a relationship there that's communicating back and forth to one another. Let's look forward. Verse 11. The Lord said to him, who has made man's mouth? Or who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not the Lord? Now then go, and I being God, even I will be with you, or will be with your mouth and teach you what you are to say. In other words, God was filling in the blank for Moses with I am all that you need. And Moses was trying to make excuses. Oh, I can't do that, God. I can't teach that class, God. I can't go before Pharaoh, God. I know him. I've grown up there. You don't go and fumble through your words. How am I going But see, with I need also a lot of times comes I doubt. We doubt in our own ability, but what we have to realize, and we learned this Wednesday night, it's so funny how it all comes back. We doubt because all we see in life is our own ability, but there's no faith in our own ability. Faith only comes when it's outside of our ability. I mean, if everything that comes to me I can take care of, I have no faith. If it's like, oh, caterer needs $3. Okay, here's $3. Caterer needs $300,000. Okay, God, we're going to need you on this one. I mean, that's the reality. It's not that I still can't believe it. It's not still that I can't meet the need. It's just outside of what I'm able to do. So I have to throw it to God and say, God, fill in the gaps. How about this, God? Fill in the blanks. God, fill in the blanks of what I'm capable of and what I'm not capable of. Because the end result is glory to you. So when God made the statement, I am who I am, he probably left some questions on the table for Moses to figure out. And for all who followed after Moses, questions like, I am who? Or for man, it's hard to wrap our mind around the idea of a God who is literally so big, he is before and after everything. So powerful, he is the answer to the question before it's asked. But I noticed something that happens, that when Jesus comes on the scene, God said, who, when he said, I am, but Jesus came and he said the what. See, God said, I am, and man looked at it as I am what? I am what? And so it would seem that man needed more clarification for the questions they had. And now Jesus comes on the scene, and where God had defined the who he is, Jesus was about to define the what he is. And why is that? Because Jesus fills in the blanks. Come on, it's too quiet this morning. This is good stuff. I'm preaching better than you're agreeing this morning. But Jesus fills in the blanks. He comes and he fills in what God didn't say. God said, this is who I am. You want to know who I am? I am. And then Jesus comes by and Jesus says, now I'm going to tell you what I am. Because my Father evidently feels the need to make clarification. So Jesus starts by declaring himself as God. If you have your Bible, you want to flip to John. We're going to be in the book of John, a few different places, but let's start at John chapter 8, around verse 56. I'll give you just a minute to turn there if you want to follow along today. Also, all of my notes are in YouVersion under events. You can see all of it. That way you can prepare to amen before I say it. Jesus wants to start this thing. He's going to fill in the blanks of what God is. And so in John 8:56, he has to establish himself to the people as God. And this is where he says, your father Abraham rejoiced that he would see my day. And he's talking to the Pharisees here. And he saw it and was glad. And so the Jews said to him, you are not yet 50 years old. And have you seen Abraham? Have you seen Abraham? You're just 30-something years old, Jesus. How can you say that you've known Abraham? And look what he said. Jesus said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, what? I am.
Amen.
So they picked up the stones to throw at him. But Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple. Do you know why they picked up the stones to throw at him? It's because he was committing blasphemy to them. He didn't say I was. He didn't say I was simply I lived before Abraham. No, he says I am. And when he said that word in Hebrew, they knew it meant I am God.
Right.
It was the same as Yahweh. It was the same reference. He says I am. And they go, ooh, get the stones. And they start throwing at him, but somehow he manages to escape. Why? Because it's not his time to lay his life down yet. But he establishes himself as God. Jesus isn't saying that he lived before Abraham. Had he wanted to say that, he would have said, before Abraham I was. All of the Jews knew what God had told their ancestor Moses. It had been taught to them since they were children. So when they heard him saying, before Abraham was, I am, they knew Jesus was declaring himself as God in the flesh.
Come on.
That's why they picked up the stones and began to stone him. They felt he committed blasphemy. So Jesus reinstates, he, like his Father, the who God is, he says, I am. Jesus says, you know who God is? It's I am God. And they couldn't handle it. Then in Jesus' ministry, after he establishes the who, he begins to fill in the what, and he begins to fill in the blank that God in the Old Testament felt no need to fill in. Look here, John 6:35. Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. I am is the who, the bread of life is the what. And he starts telling them multiple times, whoever comes to me shall not hunger, and whoever believes in me, they will not thirst. He knows man has a need, so he begins to show them that he's come to be the answer to their need. See, there had been this separation between God and man, but now Jesus is going to fill in the blanks. See what I'm saying? He was going to fill in the gap. And he says, I am the bread of life. I am. And you see, man's need says we are spiritually hungry. We can't find fulfillment. We starve for purpose. And Jesus breaks it down in one of the first phrases of what God is. He says, I am the bread of life. And if you come to me, you will never be hungry again. I will fill the void spaces of your life. Why? Because I've come to fill in the blanks. You're hungry, and I'm about to satisfy you. You're needy, and I'm about to make sure that you don't want again because I come to fill in the blanks. Jesus goes on to explain it further in verse 51. He says, I am living bread that came down from heaven. And if anyone eats this bread, he will live forever. And the bread that I will give for this life of this world is my flesh. Have you ever heard a better statement of you got some skin in the game? Come on. He said, I came down from heaven, and I'm going to prove that I'm the bread of life, because the bread that I'm going to give you is my very own flesh. What can you give somebody more than that? Jesus said, greater love hath no man than to lay down his life for his friend. In other words, there's no greater love than to give up your very flesh, your very life for someone else. Jesus explains. He says, you have an eternal need. You have a hunger that's not being filled. And I have come from heaven as a way for you to get there. And I'm going to lay down my life so that you can have a way to the Father. You've not been able to cross that void between you and God. You haven't been able to cross it. There's been no way for you to get to God directly. But I've come to fill the way. I'm the bridge to the Father. I'm going to be the bridge between you and the Father. And Jesus continues to explain. He explains the what. Look at chapter 8, verse 12. He says, again, Jesus spoke to them, saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Jesus is saying you're lost. You can't find your own way, but I am the God who gives you direction. And you've been wandering lost. You've been looking for purpose. And he says, I have come to light your way. They've been wandering in darkness. The Jews have been looking for a Savior. They've been looking for the Messiah to come, but he hasn't been there. And the world is corrupt. It's full of sin. And just like us, we're wandering around. We don't know Jesus, and we're fumbling in the darkness. And he comes and he tells us the what of God. He says, I am the light of the world. And whoever follows me doesn't walk in darkness. Why? Because they have the light. And the prophet Isaiah, over 700 years before Jesus was born, prophesied of the light that was coming. Isn't it amazing? Can you imagine somebody saying something 700 years ago and it coming true in your lifetime? You'd be going, that guy knew something. That guy knew something that I didn't know. And everyone over those 700 years who had read from Isaiah was looking for the light that would come. See, they knew it was coming. Follow me now. They knew it was coming, but they didn't know who it was. They said, oh, there's a light that's coming one day. It's going to be the Messiah. He's going to be a light to the darkened world. But we don't know. We know that there is someone coming, but we don't know who it is. And Jesus Christ comes in this one verse, and he says, I am filling in that blank for you. I am the light of the world. You've been looking for it, and now it's here. Look what Isaiah says. Isaiah 9, verse 2. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. This is 700 years before Jesus would ever come to earth. He makes no mistakes. And aren't you grateful this morning that although you used to stumble in the darkness, although you used to have no hope, you couldn't find your way, and you did not know who Jesus was, then one day he came in and he filled in the blank spaces of your life, and he shined a light into dark places, and he established himself as the light. We serve a God who felt it necessary to send his Son to the earth. Why? To fill in the blanks. We had questions. And a good father doesn't get mad about questions. What do? Good fathers fill in the blanks. Because I would rather a father tell the son what they need to know than for them to learn it somewhere else. Good fathers fill in the blanks. And so God said, you know what? They need something else. They need a Savior. They need someone to bridge the gap between me and them. Send me, my Son. I'm going to send him down there, and he is going to fill in the blanks for man. He felt it necessary to fill in the blanks. John 10:7. So Jesus said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. I am again. All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy, but I've come that they may have life and have it abundantly. I am the good shepherd. And the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. He who is a hired hand and not a shepherd, who does not own the sheep, sees the wolves coming and leaves the sheep and flees. And the wolf snatches them and scatters them. He flees because he's a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. But I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. And just as the Father knows me, I know the Father. And again he says, I lay down my life for the sheep. They said, we need a sacrifice. He said, I'll fill in the blank. We need someone to cover sin. Jesus said, I'll fill in the blank. We need someone to rise up and to create some men that will change the world. And Jesus said, you know what? I'll fill in the blank. I'll create a group of men like no men have ever seen before, who will lay down their very life to spread the gospel, not just here, but around the world. And the impact they leave will be talked about for thousands of years because I'll fill in the blank. Jesus starts out again. He says, I am the door of the sheep. He clarifies that the only way for the sheep is through the door. And he's claiming not only is he our way, but he's also our protection. See, when you're at the gate, when you are the gate, you keep the sheep from going out and straying. Because if they stray, they'll be killed. But you also keep the predators from coming in. See, when we put Jesus in our life, he protects us from the attacks of the outside. He said, he helps us to recognize those that do attack us, because he said anyone that doesn't come through the gate is a thief and a robber. So when people come and they bring a false gospel, what do we recognize? We say, oh, there's a thief and a robber. Why? Because I know the gate. And when a sheep is in its pen, it's safe and protected. But when it chooses to leave the pen, it becomes lost and in danger. And see, by Jesus establishing himself as the gate, he's saying, I am the way from the lost to the found. Look out on the pasture. There's that one sheep who is stubborn. It going on its own way. And then you got all the other sheep in here that are protected by the gate. And see, when you go outside of the gate, you take your own future in your own hands. In your stubborn rebelliousness, your only way to get back in the graces and the safety of the Savior is to enter through the gate. I fill in the blank between the gap between the lost and the found. How do you tell if someone's lost or found? Have they come through Jesus? Have you been through Jesus? The only way to the Father is through Jesus. He then says, I am the good shepherd. I'm not some hired hand who runs off when trouble comes. No, I lay down my life for the sheep. Why? Because I know them and they know me. And I fill in the blank between them and those who seek to take their life. Why? Because I love them. I'm the gate. I lay in the middle of someone who wants to kill them and know in the safety of the Father. I am the gate. I lay there. John 11:25. Look at this. Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet he shall live. Man. I am. I'm establishing the what. This is where it begins to get good. When God said, tell them, I am sent you. He became the destination for all men. And his presence changed everything. God was bringing them out of captivity into a land that he had prepared for them. And our goal, what is our goal? Our goal is to one day be with God. That's what we're trying to do. And we're trying to take as many people along the way with us as we can. And Jesus came so that we might have a way to get to God. And he fills in the blank between us and God. And he crosses the gap so that we can pray and go directly to the Father. Jesus is interceding for us. When we pray, he fills in the gap to the Father's ear. And God is the destination of where we want to be, but Jesus is the way. It's hard to get somewhere when you don't know the way. If y'all told me to get to Connecticut and didn't tell me the way, I don't know how to get there. I just go north and hope to get there eventually. It's kind of a bad thing. It's like if you cut the lights off in here and I tell you to get to the back of the room at a certain specific point, you're not going to know how to get there. But if you've got the light and you got the way, you'll walk right to it. He's being specific. He's not being narrow-minded. Jesus is not narrow-minded. He's saying, I am the way. I am the truth. I am life. He's not being narrow-minded saying, I am the resurrection and the life. He's being specific. And so finally, what does all this mean? Men and women are born. And from the moment they are born, they are programmed to search out the why. Why am I here? And why do I exist? And what is my purpose? And everybody is asking that question. Why? Why me? What am I going to do with my life? What is God's plan for me? What is my plan for me? And we look at it right here and it says, John 14:6, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. No one comes to the Father except through me. He is the way. Look here. John 15, 1 and 2. I'm going to ask you, because one of the blanks that you need to fill out for yourself is, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? And that's what everybody's trying to figure out. So this is what I'm going to show you this morning. Verse 1. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful. And you are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. Jesus says it right here. I am the vine, and you are the branches. If you remain in me, and I in you, you will bear much fruit. But apart from me, you can do nothing. You can't live a Christian life without Christ. He says that the gardener is going to come, and those things that don't produce fruit, he's going to cut off. And those things are going to be cast into the fire. But the ones that do bear fruit, he's going to prune them so that they bear even more fruit. Jesus is saying the only way you will live is to abide in me. Why? Because in the vine, it is the source of life. It's the source of life. The branch, it participates in the vine. It's connected to the vine. If you abide in me, you will bear fruit. And Jesus goes on to say, my Father, in other words, the great I am, he is the gardener. And if you abide in me, the vine, my Father will prune you so that through me, Jesus, the source of life, you will bear much fruit. Because the I am is the gardener. And what does the gardener do? He cares for the vine and the branches. There's an interesting relationship between the gardener, the vine, and the branches. Let me tell you what that is. The gardener, it can live on its own. It doesn't need anything else. He is the gardener. He sustains life for his own self. The vine, it can live on its own. If the gardener doesn't come, the vine will still live. The weather's good, it'll still live. The vine can still prosper. Maybe not as much without the gardener, but it'll still live. But the branch, it can't live apart from the vine. And we try to live our lives apart from the vine. See, the gardener can exist alone. The vine can exist alone, but the branch can't. And Jesus saying what he's saying, I am your purpose. That's why I'm telling you to abide in me. I'm filling in the blank for you on what is your purpose. Abide in me, and you will live. Not only will you live, you will live out your purpose as the branch. Because let me tell you what the purpose of the branch is. The purpose of the branch is to bear the fruit of the vine. The purpose of the branch is to bear the fruit of the vine. What's interesting about this is the glory of the vine comes through the branch. You understand what I'm saying? God's glory is displayed not through the vine, but through the branch that's connected with Jesus. Jesus, in his love for you, allows you to bear the fruit that brings him glory. The vine doesn't produce the fruit. The vine just sustains the branches. And then in that, he lets you display the glory of God. Jesus, in all his greatness, allows the weakest part, the most fragile part, the branch, to display the glory of him, the vine. And we get to bear the fruit of the Master. So when we abide in him, he makes sure that our lives produce his glory. And see, it's just a full circle again. Boom. Boom. And guess what the gardener does? He rejoices when the vine prospers. He fills in the blanks. So our purpose is simply to abide in the vine and produce God's glory. When you say, what is my purpose? Blank. He says, abide in me. Because I'm the blank. And then he says, Jesus, he fills in the blank where God started with who he was. Jesus states what God is. And then in our life, Jesus fills in the blank of what is my purpose. And now Jesus is at this point where he wants to fill in the blanks of your life. He wants to come and to give you himself for Christmas. He wants you to know him like you've never known him before. And would you like to be part of the vine this morning? Because maybe you're part of the vine, but you're not bearing fruit. And that's a dangerous place to be in, because when the gardener comes, he's going to cut away everything that doesn't bear fruit. And I don't want to be in the place where when the gardener comes and he looks, he says, oh, there's no fruit there, cut it off. I want to be in the place where he says, oh, that's growing good, but if I just do a little pruning, imagine what it can do. And some of us need to just allow God to do some pruning in our lives, because he is answering your I need with his I am. And so all this has led up to this, is that God, in his great gloriousness, he stated the answer to every problem that man would ever have, and simply just saying, what is the answer to every problem that every man ever has? He says, I am the answer. And then we say, well, how knowledge you get to God. And I am the purpose of thy in me. Randy, would you come this morning? There's nothing wrong with having questions. A lot of times in life, there's a lot of blanks to fill in. Let's stand together. There's a lot of blanks to fill in. I don't know what to do, God. I don't know where my future holds. But the thing is, where you direct those questions will answer who you abide in. Jonathan, right now in your life, you just finished college, you're about to get married. There's nothing wrong with having questions. Just direct them in the right spot. God, help me to be help me to be a good husband. Help me to be a good man, Lord. Help me to live for you. Help me to know the path that you have for me. There's nothing wrong with going, God, I don't know what to do next. God, I don't know how to do this. It's just making sure that you point them in the right direction. Because God, it will fill in the blanks. I'm worried about my future, God. I'm worried about my health. He says, let me fill in the blanks. Let me fill in the blanks. I tell you, I'll be honest, as a father, I like filling in the blanks. I like being able to give my son and my daughter answers. It thrills me that they would come to me and that they would need my counsel and they would ask me instead of going out and trying to get it somewhere else. It's the love of the child that beckons the father with their questions. Why don't you give your questions to God this morning? The things that you don't understand right now, let it fill in the blanks. As they sing this morning, would you come to an altar this morning? Would you ask God to lead you? God to know what God's calling you to do. He called Samuel when he was just a boy. He called David when he was quite young. And if you're older, it doesn't matter too, because Abraham was very old before he realized the purpose that God had for his life. See, beginnings start today. Beginnings start today with whatever we want to do, but it begins with obedience. As they sing one more time, God, fill in the blanks. What is my purpose? I'm telling you, 2018 is going to rock our world here. We're going to do things that we never thought we could do in ways that we never thought we could, because we're going to submit to God fully for His will, and we're going to see this place expand, and God is going to fill it with people who are hungry for Him, and we're going to have a chance to love them like they've never been loved before. I'm telling you, get in line. It's fixing to happen. As we pray this morning, please do not back down from what's ahead, and ask God, say, God, what is that calling in my life? Please, God, fill in the blanks today.
This is grace. This is grace. Unchanging, unfailing. This is grace. This is grace. Amazing, unchanging. This is grace. This is grace. Unchanging, unfailing. This is grace. This is grace. Unfailing, foolish and impossible, but for every heart it rescues, it's a miracle. It's nothing less than sinless that Jesus took our place. Knowing what it is, knowing what it is, knowing what it is, call it grace. It's the gentle hand that pulls you, the judgment of the crowd. When you stand before the guilty, and you've got no way out. Some may call it foolish, impossible,
tell you story after story. When I talk to different ones and what God is doing and how He's growing people, stretches people, and, I mean, just creating mighty, mighty men of God, ladies of God. It is powerful, powerful. And I know He's raising up people so that we can mark this community in a way like it's never been marked before. I'm not here in this church to compete with any other church, but to join arms with them and to see God do what we maybe have previously thought was impossible. I'm saying 2018 is going to be a year where we cast our nets on the other side. 2018 is going to be a year where we say, oh, we don't have the ability to do it, but God does. And we're not going to know that till we're stepping at the edge of what we can't do anymore. When we step out of the edge, God is going to meet us. And we're going to step out into what looks like nothing, and we're going to find everything. And if you want to be part of an exciting year, an exciting church, an exciting time to be a Christian, you pray and you get ready. This is coming. I want you to be, give the Lord a hand. Don't be guilty of keeping it a secret either. You got people you know need to be here. Invite them. We got people that ain't here this morning. Remind them what's going on here. It'll be so contagious before long. It'll take care of itself. What time do the kids need to be here today, Randy?
They need to be here at 3:30.
The kids need to be here at 3:30. The kids' Christmas play is at 6 tonight. If it's anything like last year, it will be excellent. It was incredible last year, and I look forward to tonight. Randy and his team, Hannah and so many McKennas, and man, I know all bunches. I know some have parents been here. They put a lot of time into it. Show up tonight. Show up tonight. If nothing else, you can help serve refreshers. You can do something. You can greet. You can help people park. Last year we were trying to find places to park. And so be here. Show some love for them tonight. Have the kids here at 3:30 today. Be ready for that. And let's celebrate together. Of course, Wednesday night we'll have service. We'll be looking at the Christmas story on Wednesday night. Be here for that. Let's study that together. And then we'll be dismissed. We'll have service next Sunday at regular time. And then, you be here for that. You make it a priority, okay? Turn around and greet someone near you and have a great day. Yeah.